Ah. Are we live? I do believe we're live. How nice. Uh, Let me just check what we're doing here on the web. Well, what do you know? Ha! We did it. We succeeded. We're live. The system works. Everything's going well. This is my first stream, everybody. I am trying to get into live streaming on my channel, as well as making video content on my channel, and, well, this is the beginning. I made a thread a little bit ago, not a thread, more like a post and a revised post about taking care of rules that you weren't comfortable with. And that the way to get better is to just deal with them, approach them, attempt to grok them, and what have you. And, well, this is going to be it. Unlike my more stream of conscious videos, I'm going to be a little bit more loosey-goosey with this. So for now, we'll see how far we get. I'm not sure how much time I have to do this or how much time we get. But first, a little backstory, I guess. I'm currently doing a West Marches campaign based off of 5.5e. Or like 5e, 5.5e. I commonly refer to it as 5/.5e because it's, well, it's a thing. I liked the new shiny, so when Dungeons and Dragons came out with their 2024 rules and cleaned up the formatting and rearranged things a little bit better and added some new things here and there, I kind of jumped in. A big gulp to the Kool-Aid, if you will. And I've had some time to kind of simmer down on it. And, well, it's fine, if a bit messy, and ultimately more work on my part. Yeah, good stuff. But the first edition that I started with is 5e Player's Handbook. This is where I based everything off of, and it is very well worn at this point. And there were always rules in here that were kind of troublesome to me, and I was fortunate enough to be able to ignore them. That's the thing about running your own games, is you can kind of not have to do things you don't want to if you've creatively planned. And so there's things I've skipped. And I've felt very convicted lately to try and go back and approach those things that I once thought were unapproachable. Stuff like chases, multi-classing, aspects of spells. The little rules that are easy to kind of massage out of your games and homebrew and stuff. So I'm going to try and go through those now. And I'll have a read-along up on screen as well. But the edition that we finally settled on for our West Marches is 5.5e, with kind of pulling back to 5e when things got too wonky. And things do get wonky. But I got this nice little edition, and I'm going to be personally reading from this and trying to kind of give a little read-along so you can actually see the text that we're tackling. I find in my older age that reading the book, the physical book, tends to go a lot better for my eyes than a screen. And the silhouette of looking down at a book, at a tome, is much more edifying than looking at a screen and going like, I tend to go mouth agape while reading sometimes. I don't know. I've never really streamed much to where you could see something like, yeah, he does this, and he does that sort of stuff. So we're going to start looking. I'm going to start looking for kind of the first ordeal that the first rule that makes me wish, or that I skipped, that I need to get better at, that I need to improve in my game, in my current West Marches game, and try to make myself a better DM in the process, which will then hopefully make players better. That's ultimately the goal, right? So let's see. Order of combat, I know those. Established positions. Let's see. Making an attack, nothing too crazy. Cover. Now, cover is one of those things that... Excuse me. I'm dying. Cover is one of those rules which I ignore. It's not that I don't understand it. My players aren't that strategic, and I'm not that strategic. So I think that's actually going to be kind of a good place to start. Let's bring in the stage, shall we? And for those who are in here and chatting, if you're following along in 5.5e and come up with something that is commonly ignored or difficult, yeah, let me know. We'll add it as best we can. Again, I'm kind of figuring out how this is going to work ultimately, stream-wise. Let's go here. We've got cover, which would be playing the game. Let's do playing the game. Is that just a rhythm of play? What section is this? Combat? We're in combat. There we go. One reason why I like the book a little bit more is I know how to find things in combat. I don't know how to find anything in combat because I am a peaceful video editor. I don't combat. In the book is easier. The book, physical media, physical is still the best way to do things. But I want you all watching this to be able to read along. So, cover. Let's read it. Let's read it, shall we? Walls, trees, creatures, and other obstacles can provide cover, making a target more difficult to harm. As detailed in the cover table, there are 3 degrees of cover, each which gives a different benefit to the target. A target can benefit from cover only when an attack or other effect originates on the opposite side of the cover. If a target is behind multiple sources of cover, only the most protective degree of cover applies. The degrees aren't added together. For example, if a target is behind a creature that gives half cover and a tree trunk that gives 3/4 cover, the target has 3/4 cover. So, as you can kind of see, and I'm going to try my best to kind of keep this in pace with the book. Again, folks, read the book. The little fancy table here, we've got half cover is benefit to target +2 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws, offered by another creature or an object that covers at least half of the target. 3/4 +5 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws. An object that covers at least 3/4 of the target. Total can't be targeted directly. An object that covers the whole target. This is kind of crazy, but it doesn't really show up in our games that much. And I might actually have to start doing this. This is kind of a bit shameful, considering that in the book it's on page 26. Cover is a very basic rule, actually. I think the issue on my end, why I ignored it, is very simply put, it's just, I don't think of it. I don't have that in the back of my mind. I don't have it referenced anywhere in sort of a table or a referential thing. I think I mentioned in my previous video that I need references to kind of help me with things that I have a hard time recalling. I wish I were better at recalling, and that's a thing I continue to strive for, to be better at it. And it's an ever-evolving journey, but one thing I do to help myself is make lots of reference sheets, cheat sheets, things that I can just kind of pop at, scan over real quick and find. Cover never makes it to any of these, if only because it's just the habit we've fallen into. As players, well, I'm not thinking of the scenery in terms of cover, and if it's theater of the mind, sometimes it's harder to visualize that, and sometimes the DM of a theater of the mind sort of game isn't going to... Sometimes they may or may not make allowances for that. And usually, what ends up happening with our maps, and in both Theater of the Mind and Battle Map, is that they're just flat surfaces that you just kind of circle around each other and punch until dead. But this cover rule, I need to be better at it, first of all. I need to focus on it. I need to start using it on my players more. And I just need to have this in mind. Because what it's going to do is it's going to challenge my players to think more in their combat. Make them use the scenery a bit more, but make us all at the table be much more specific in what we're trying to do in combat. This is really cool. Humbling but cool. Cover is a feature that I've had trouble with, and I'm going to try and make myself better at it. There is a sidebar here. Let's read that. Unseen attackers and targets. When you make an attack roll against a target you can't see, you have disadvantage on the roll. This is true whether you're guessing the target's location or targeting a creature you can hear but not see. If the target isn't in the location you targeted, you missed. When a creature can't see you, you have advantage on attack rolls against it. If you are hidden when you make an attack roll, you give away your location when the attack hits or misses. We might get to this. I don't know if we'll get to this in this particular stream, but we recently had an issue on our West Marches with fog cloud and darkness, and heavily obscured versus not in terms of melee, ranged, and spell casting. And it took too long, but because I didn't have a firm handle on the rules, and neither did the players. And I'm very much a fan of lead by example. So it's one of those situations where that's mine. That's on me, totally. This does kind of apply to it. At least the sidebar, this unseen attackers and targets, very useful. I just need to have some of these pages dog marked or earmarked or whatever, and go from there. We're not too far away from mounted combat, which was an issue in a recent game. You're kind of getting a hint at what spurned some of this. And the reason we had an issue is because to the players it felt wrong. I'm pretty indifferent to it, but mounted combat. I haven't used mounted combat a whole lot because I don't know. I like all my enemies to have attacks, and it's always been weird for me, but I mean, I guess then that makes sense for why the players would do that. Let's go to mounted combat here. Mounting, controlling a mount. Let's just go through the whole section. I mean, we've got time. I'm just doing this live stream, so we have time. Let's go through it and figure out kind of where my disconnect was, where my issue was, and how I can maybe be better. And I'm going to try to keep referring this to me as the problem, if only because if I can't practice what I've preached or talked about here, I can't expect anyone who's watching this to follow those same instructions. So I'm trying to be very apparent to my shortcomings and ways in which I can learn better. So let's just kind of continue on here. We've got mounted combat. A willing creature that is at least one size larger than a rider and that has an appropriate anatomy can serve as a mount using the following rules. Mounting and dismounting. During your move, you can mount a creature that is within 5 feet of you or dismount. Doing so costs an amount of movement equal to half your speed, round down. For example, if your speed is 30 feet, you spend 15 feet of movement to mount a horse. That's interesting. That's useful. That helps with being off the horse before beginning, jumping onto it. Like maybe the creature's coming by and you're going to pull a Legolas and swoop around behind or something like that. Good to know. Also, probably an area where people could get hung up on a Mandela effect of the rules. So within 5 feet, as long as the creature is within 5 feet, you can use half the movement. So there's not a lot of movement and climbing up onto the creature within that turn where you want to mount. Good to know. Controlling a mount, and I think this is where we were having problems. You can control a mount only if it has been trained to accept a rider. Domesticated horses, mules, or similar creatures have such training. The initiative of a controlled mount changes to match yours when you mount it. It moves on your turn as you direct it, and it has only 3 action options during that turn: dash, disengage, and dodge. A controlled mount can move and act even on the turn that you mount it. Okay. So that could be an area where we have some trouble, and I think we kind of did. So once you've mounted the creature, they can still take their movement and their action, which is limited to those 3 things. And I think that's where some confusion happened at the table. And I just didn't have a firm grasp on these. My bad. In contrast, an independent mount, one that lets you ride but ignores your control, retains its place in the initiative order and moves and acts as it likes. Now, I think what ends up happening for me, and why I don't do mounted a lot, is because I pick creatures that have fun attacks that I want to enact on the players. But because they're controlled mount, all they can do is dash, disengage, and dodge. So what strategically as a DM, what I probably need to end up doing instead is picking a less interesting mount in terms of what it can do in combat, and get it more for its movement around the battlefield. And because it can dash, because it can disengage, more importantly, because it can disengage, that means that the mounted creatures or mounted combatants can move around the field without so much as a problem. I can see where this is going to be awesome for me, running combats for players, and where they might want to, in turn, do the same thing. Very interesting. The issue between independent and controlled is a point of confusion, or it was. I've since read through this, and as we're reading through it now, it becomes a lot more clear that the distinction between them. I just don't understand why, in what world, an independent mount is useful strategically. If I'm the enemy attacking the players, I want a controlled mount, unless it's more of an improvised thing, unless what it is that you want to use the independent mount because the mount themselves are the interesting thing. So, for example, if you want to have a dire warg be the mount, and you have the guy on top of it, and the guy on top of it ain't that interesting, right? So then maybe what we're wanting is that if he's got something he can do, great. If not, he can hold an attack. There we go. He can hold an attack, and that solves that. Interesting. It's something worth playing around with, and I think I'm going to start engaging my players with that a bit more, just to kind of keep that going. What else here? What else? Let's keep looking. There's bound to be more. Saving throws, I got those. Resistances, no stacking. Order of application. Healing, immunity, knocking out a creature. Something that as a player I haven't done. This is more for me as a player than a DM, but let's take care. Let's deal with it here. We've got damage and healing. Let's move to that section here. Damage and healing. We've got it's dropping to hit point, knocking out a creature. So knocking out a creature. Let's see. When you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack, you can instead reduce the creature to 1 hit point and give it the unconscious condition. It then starts a short rest, at the end of which that condition ends on it. The condition ends early if the creature regains any hit points, or if someone takes an action to administer first aid. Okay. As a player, I've never really done this. I've never really done the knocking out a creature. I've never really knocked out a creature. Only because I want that sweet, sweet XP. The glorious XP. XP is totally for me. Um, but it is here. It is a rule, and there are many uses of this rule, and you know we shouldn't just ignore them because they're either convenient or hard to understand or not exactly the thing we want to do. So knocking out a creature, something I did in my last West marches, which was more on a whim, but it kind of jogged something in my mind. At one point, a party of bugbears, hobgoblins, and wargs were attacking the players in a jungle, and the fight was going kind of boring as far as I'm concerned. Just because the players were clearly going to win. It wasn't an encounter that was meant to be difficult because it was just a scouting party. It was all randomly generated, and kind of had the it was the equivalent of a wandering monsters thing. But given the nature of the scouting party, it wasn't going to be difficult because of our play. Like if our players encountered them, it wouldn't be difficult. I digress. But the players had it in the bag. Except one of the players made kind of a silly decision, and I managed to, as a bugbear with his 10-foot reach, grapple the player character, who was a turtle, so kind of a smaller individual, grabbed him, and then the inspiration hit to just run, to flee the map. And the players immediately, went, "Oh shoot!" And it was at that moment I realized that I probably need to engage with some of these more side rules to be a surprise to the players. Combat is generally not going to be a surprise. You have, your ranged folk coming in with ranged attacks, your melee fighters, your crowd control. You have your different elements that you're going to make the battlefield dynamic on a 2D plane and on a sort of regular brain mode. But you kind of have to galaxy brain it sometimes, especially for some of the easier encounters that pop up. And it just gave character to the bugbears in a way that I hadn't really considered. And I am enlightened and humbled at the same time. So capturing, knocking out, it would be interesting at one point, and I've promised this in our campaign materials, the equivalent of a session 0, that being total party kill is not, a TPK is not always a thing. Like it could happen if the creatures are violent, and that's their nature, but not every creature has that as a goal. And I haven't made good on that yet. And it may be worthwhile at some point to, whether it's with secondary characters that are newly rolled, to instill that not going down to 0 isn't just a means to check out and start preparing your next character, and ways to increase that. So something to improve. You know what? I don't know if we'll get to it, but conditions. I always seem to have some trouble with conditions. And it's not because I don't... the issue ends up being that the conditions tend to change, tweak. They tweaked slightly between the two editions, but usually there's an experienced player who kind of like, oh, that's what this is, and I can kind of ignore it. And that's not good. As a DM, that's not good to let the players always kind of take assertion there. Conditions, multiple. This just lists them though, so we may have to come back to those later. But that might be something worth addressing. Creating a character. Oh, you know what? Let's do a learning thing. Something I've learned or explored about, and go from there. We've got getting ready, session 0. I don't do them. More specifically, I don't do them as a whole session anymore. I used to. And some of that is through trial and error, and some of those are things I've learned. Having a whole session gets a little unfocused. And everyone's there to play. And in this age of being able to create your character sheets quickly and a lack of time, session zeros eat up a lot of time. And it's not satisfying to do a session zero and then a small thing after and not level up. Especially for the very first character anyone draws. In my West Marches, I have a rule where players who are new, completely new to the game and to the campaign, or just new to the campaign, never played before, never played my game before, start at level 1. And then every secondary character, third character, fourth, everything from there can go to level 3 to just kind of bypass that. But the joy for new players, and the joy for me engaging with new players, is getting them 1 to 2 levels in a session. And that requires the whole time. So session 0 didn't quite work. But what I do is I create documentation. And now it remains to be seen whether or not this works. This is where I could learn and be better. There could be some talk at the table to just preface things. But what I do is I put these particulars in a document and go through things and try to decide what players are or aren't into. And I've had situations where it's changed or it's come up, it's been different, and those are useful, but I'm still figuring out how to do it and save time. And having a document with some of these basics has been good enough for now, but I'm always willing to learn on that front. Classes, or sorry, creating a character. That's cool. All that stuff is... Some of this stuff is not too crazy or hard to understand or things I don't engage with. Here we go. Here's something. Creating a character. What do we got? Determine ability scores. Something that popped up in the newest, in the 2024 rules that I liked, actually. For creating your character, I used to do it where I would create the character through a means of having a picture of what I wanted and then kind of making the rules fit. Not changing the rules or breaking the rules or tweaking them, but just kind of working from the finished character in my head forward or backward towards skills and stats. This table here that is appearance and personality, I should use this more as a player, and I think I'm going to try and do that in the future, because old habits die hard, and I still quite like this idea of the picture. I have such distinct pictures. Maybe that's because I'm a forever DM usually, and I'm always running games, so never playing them. So I kind of have this backlog that I want to get through. But I will tell you that one of the more enjoyable experiences I've had lately, not in this edition or 5e, but in terms of some of the older school stuff like OSE and even AD&D when I've rolled up practice characters, is not knowing who my character is until the end. I quite like it. And if any of you who are watching so far have comments, feel free to put them in there and I'll kind of pop them in as I see them. But I like this thing here, the rolling for the different kinds of aspects for high strength, low strength. As players for 5th edition / 5.5e, it's worth it to use the tables. The tables are there and they're good and they're sufficient. But also having different words that you can look to. This might be my go-to for recommending if players have a hard time creating their characters. But that's interesting. Nothing else in this character creation really seems to affect me too much. Multi-classing. They kind of tweaked multi-classing a little bit. And it's something I've ignored. But it's kind of because I have an issue with multi-classing in general. But that is also the criteria of my previous tweet. That if there's an issue... excuse me. Oh my god. That if it's a rule that I haven't wanted to engage with or have trouble engaging with, it's worth addressing. So let's go to multiclassing here, folks, and let's read the situation here. Multiclassing. Multiclassing allows you to gain levels in multiple classes. With this rule, you have the option of gaining a level in a new class whenever you advance in level, instead of gaining a level in your current class. Doing so lets you mix abilities of those classes to realize a character concept that might not be reflected in a single class. Immediately, I'm like, but I want the one class. I want to be a warlock. Only. I want all those things. I want to be a paladin. My oath, I don't share no class with anybody. My ranger needs to be ranging and not, I don't know, sorcerering. So yeah, and it's good. It's good to go through this as a DM and as a player. I'm wrestling with multiclassing because I don't care for it as a concept all that much. But it's in here. It's in the book. It's been in, as far as I can tell, most of the editions. It's an aspect that I've been playing with. I've been sitting next to for, since I've started playing this. Maybe even a little bit after 2014. Multiclassing. They tweaked it a little bit in the new rules to, or at least made it easier to conceptualize in that it is something you pick. So every level you're picking a class for that level. Kind of helpful. Kind of a neat way to think of it. Like your class is picked by level. So I just picked another level of this. I picked another level of this. Prerequisites. I didn't have problems with that. The experience point cost to gain levels based on your total character level. That can hook some people up. Not me necessarily, but worth looking at. The experience point cost to gain a level is based on your total character level, not your level in particular class, as shown in the character advancement table in this chapter. For example, if you are a level 6 cleric, level 1 fighter, you must gain enough XP to reach level 8 before you can take your second level as a fighter or your 7th as a cleric. I can see a world in which, if we were to move back from the digital format of character sheets to paper, and there are so many temptations to move back to paper, trust me, this could be an issue for someone who has kind of let their mind not work at this. Hit points and hit dice, that didn't give me any problems. I think, you know what, as I look through multiclassing, the issue... you know what? Spellcasting. That might be where I ultimately bounced. So let's look at it. Let's look at it and see if I can't make myself better at it, if we will. Let's go here. It's on the screen, but I'm looking at the book. And I'll say it again. I do prefer reading the book. The on-screen is kind of proof. It's proof. It's for you to look at too and kind of weigh against what I'm reading in case I read poorly. Spellcasting through multiclassing. Your capacity for spellcasting depends partly on your combined levels in all your spellcasting classes and partly on your individual levels in those classes. Once you have the spellcasting feature from more than one class, use the rules below. If you multiclass but have the spellcasting feature from only one class, follow the rules for that class. Fairly simple enough. I'm wondering why I was a bit intimidated based off of that. Spells prepared. Let's see. There's a table here. We'll come back to it. But let's finish reading it. Because as with all things, the tables are cool, but there is a flow to the reading, and I like to kind of read the section first and then pop back and read with table. That is my methodology. And it may not work for any other people. I don't know. You do you. Spells prepared. You determine what spells you can prepare for each class individually as if you were a single class member of that class. Okay, that makes sense. If you're a level 4 ranger, level 3 sorcerer, for example, you can prepare 5 level 1 ranger spells, and you can prepare 6 sorcerer spells of level 1 or 2, as well as 4 sorcerer cantrips. Okay. And as a reading this, I can't help but point out that we're into territory where I just don't like multiclassing. And that's me. Multiclassing is I gotta remind myself, multiclassing is a part of this edition. It's a part of the system. My players love this, and frequently I get the not really the admonition, but the explanation that just playing the straight classes gets boring after a while. As a forever DM, I'm like, I don't understand that. And even as a player, I would look at the classes and be like, I just want to do this. I just want to do this. It's never been, I kind of want to do this and this and this. I currently in our West Marches, we have what was it, a barbarian rogue? They just kind of tweaked, the way they were able to build their character allowed them to stealthily rage. And it created weird rulings and weird rule combinations. And I have players who love that stuff, and I indulge it because I'm a cool dad. But as a player, I hate it. I don't like multiclassing. But I think what I need to do at some point is create a multi-classed character in this system. This system of familiarity. Familiarity, by the way, as I mentioned in the tweet. But still, I read this and I'm just like, oh, but could I just be a ranger? Or could I just be a sorcerer? But let's engage with the rules as written, because that's important in the addition of choice, the addition of familiarity. And engaging with what's there is the best way to play. Playing a game and changing what you don't like is a, frankly, silly way to play, and it makes you wonder why. It should make you wonder why you're playing the game to begin with. There's a few things where if like an edition starts to change rules in a way you don't like, there's an element of scale and build up. But at a certain point, if every rule you come across that you don't like, you're just like, not gonna do that, not gonna do that, get a new system or stop playing. So multiclassing. I need to figure out why my players love it so much. Cantrips. If a cantrip of yours increases in power at higher levels, the increase is based on your total character level, not your level in a particular class, unless the spell says otherwise. Oh, nope. Hold on. Just making sure. If you're commenting and I don't see it or don't respond to it, I'm using a third party to stream to both X and YouTube at the moment. So I'm hoping, I take great faith that the interface I'm using allows for me to see the comments that come in. If not, I will figure something out and, maybe get depressed for a little bit. But for the cantrips, if a cantrip of yours increases in power at higher levels, the increase is based on your total character level, not your level in a particular class. That is good to know, unless the spell says otherwise. I don't like that. When you create too many different extra points of like, unless it does this, it creates a load for the DM. But they're part of the book. It's worth engaging with. Spell slots. I think this is where I've had difficulties in the past. Let's see if I need to be embarrassed about it. So you determine your available spell slots by adding together the following. All your levels in the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, and Wizard classes. All your levels. So by adding together. Half your levels round up in the Paladin and Ranger classes. Oh my god. Okay. 130 are Fighter and Rogue levels rounded down. Wow. That's a lot. Makes me want to quit it. But again, it's important to engage with this. You determine your available spell slots by adding together the following. Then look up this total level in the level column of the multi-class spellcasters table. Let's go back up to the table. No, caught myself. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go through the logic and then work through it with the tables. So this table might give you spell slots of a higher level than the spells you prepare. You can use those slots, but only to cast your lower level spells. If a lower level spell that you cast, like Burning Hands, has an enhanced effect when cast at a higher level, you can use the enhanced effect as normal. Worthwhile. So the example here is if you are a level 4 ranger, a level 3 sorcerer, you count as a level 5 character when determining your spell slots, counting all your levels as sorcerer and half your ranger levels. As shown in the multi-class spellcasters table, you have 4 level 1 spell slots, 3 level 2 spell slots, and 2 level 3 slots. However, you can't prepare any level 3 spells, nor can you prepare any level 2 ranger spells. You can use the spell slots of those levels to cast the spells you do prepare and enhance their effects. Not bad. It is a lot, though, and just another item in the list of why I don't like multi-classing in general. But it doesn't not make sense. Let's look at that table. I mean, and then probably all you AD&Ders and old school people who are like, this is a problem for you. Hey, look, I'm bearing it all, bearing my embarrassments and my journey to be better. And you know what? We all got to start somewhere. And I'm working backward, folks. So multi-class spellcaster, spell slots per spell level. Tables are awesome, aren't they? If there's one thing that this edition needed more of, and I mean this very seriously, it's tables. I love tables. Let's go here. I mean, that all makes sense. Pack magic. That all seems to make sense. My next character, the next character I subject my new DMs to in my campaign, I should seriously consider making a multi-class character. And just work through it. I don't like it, but that's part of the journey. As far as the classes themselves go, those are all... Don't have difficulties with those. Trying to think if there's something else here. I think that, as far as character creation goes, that I think is it for things that I've avoided or struggled with or kind of chosen not to use. I think it's time to hop to the next, whatever the next section is here. Character origins. Usually, when there is a chapter, there is usually kind of a section in the beginning that is easy to miss if you're not careful, or if you are just making things from a digital character sheet. No, everything makes sense. The 2024 rules shifted kind of the structure of creating your character, and it was easy enough to understand. But if you're running 2024 rules with players who are used to 2014 rules, they need help. And you're going to need to have a firm handle on how that works. You know what? Let's go with... Okay, the origins, that's fine. Feats. Feats aren't really a big deal. They're not too crazy. Equipment. You know what? There's some stuff in equipment. Let's go there. There's stuff that I could be better at in terms of running the game. So let's challenge myself a little bit here. Table of contents. We're going back. We're going forward. Chapter 6. Equipment. Yeah, we're going to equipment, folks. Woohoo. Coins, not a big deal. Selling equipment. Weirdly enough, if you're running a game and you don't give your players lots of stuff, lots of trinkets and gems and items and weapons, if you don't give your players lots of things, they're not going to sell lots of things. So then you don't have this selling equipment rule that you have to think about. And I keep forgetting this one. It's silly, it's stupid, but it's a point in which I can choose to be better and work at it. So, selling equipment. The sidebar here is equipment fetches half its cost when sold. In contrast, trade goods and valuables like gems and art objects retain their full value in the marketplace. The Dungeon Master's Guide has things. So, equipment. As long as I just know that it is half, it's reduced by half, we're good. And then the trade goods are fine. Now, weapon proficiencies and properties. What else do we have? Weapons, properties. Those are all fine. Trying to find improvised weapons here. Ayo, what? Where is it? Very interesting. Well, it doesn't show up in here. But what I'm looking at is a... Hold on. All right, guys, here we go. This is... Where the heck is my mouse? Oh, there it is. All right, here's what we're doing, guys. All right. As best as I can, I'm going to... Jesus. Okay. As best I can, improvise weapons. It wasn't showing up on the thing unless I missed it. But if you use an object such as a table leg, a frying pan, a bottle as a makeshift weapon, see improvised weapons in the rules glossary. Also see these rules if you wield a weapon in an unusual way, such as using a ranged weapon to make a melee attack. It's worth knowing these. I ignore them, and then whenever something comes up, I'm just like, well, I don't know what you do. Yeah, and then I'm looking at the rule, like the glossaries. I'm going through and taking time. So let's go. Let's look. Let's look at it in the rules glossary, which in the 2024 thing is helpful, if a bit extra. Improvised weapon. All right. Improvised weapon. We're not on this sheet, so let's go back to my full face at the moment. We're going to pull the book up here and make it look impressive. An improvised weapon is an object wielded as a makeshift weapon, such as a broken glass, a table leg, or a frying pan. A simple or martial weapon also counts as an improvised weapon if it's wielded in a way contrary to its design. If you use a ranged weapon to make a melee attack or throw a melee weapon that lacks the thrown property, the weapon counts as an improvised weapon. An improvised weapon follows the rules below. Below in the book. Proficiency. Don't add your proficiency bonus to attack rolls with an improvised weapon. Okay. Damage. On a hit, the weapon deals 1d4 damage of a type the DM thinks is appropriate for the object. Range. If you throw the weapon, it has a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60. That's useful. Weapon equivalence. If an improvised weapon resembles a simple or martial weapon, the DM may say it functions as that weapon and use that weapon's rules. For example, the DM could treat a table leg as a club. Yeah, that makes sense. It's not that I kind of ignored that. I've ignored that rule to the detriment of running the game. That is on me. But it is worthwhile as a small rule to know because your players are going to improvise their weapons so damn much. All right, let's go to the mastery properties. Let's go to masteries. Oh, there it is. Okay. Mastery properties. Light range. Okay. Mastery. Here we go. Masteries are a new thing for 2024 rules, and they've been a point of contention, if only because some of them are confusingly worded. At least according to my players when we've slowed down our game because of such things. So let's take a look here. And we're going to look at one very particular one. Nick. The Nick attack weapon mastery. When you make the extra attack of the light property, You can make it as part of the attack action instead of as a bonus action. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. When you make the extra attack of the light property, which if you have 2 daggers, that's dagger, dagger. You can make it as a part of the attack action instead of as a bonus action, which should then free your bonus action for stuff. Where it gets confusing is if you have a few things that kind of tug at that. Things that change the extra attack. I'm trying to think. The confusion fails me, but these are going to slow down your game, especially if they are confusing. Things like Vex, Topple, Slow, Sap, Push, Graze, Cleave. A lot of those are straightforward. Watch out for the Nick one, and I'm still trying to be good at kind of immediately grasping the rule as written and applying it to just the logic specifically, because it gets messy in the extra attack category, especially when you have the light property and you are early level and you don't have a second attack. It just gets kind of messy, and we've had some troubles with those, and I have had troubles as well. To my shame, to my massive shame. Equipment sizes, tools, adventuring gear. Let's see if there's anything. You know what? Something that I think as a 5th editioner that doesn't get used a lot, and I am continually trying to be better at it. Let's go to the equipment and go into mounts and vehicles and beyond, because it's in my history kind of an ignored section. Mounts and vehicles. All right. We don't use this very much, and we should. And since I have a West Marches and travel is a huge component, I should be pretty darn good at this, or have it in the front of my mind the whole time. We're already getting up to an hour here. That's kind of awesome. I didn't think I'd have anything to talk about. Dang, wow. All right. Lots of learning here today, folks. So mounts and vehicles. A mount can help you move quickly. An animal pulling a carriage, cart, chariot, sled, or wagon can move weight up to 5 times its base carrying capacity, including the weight of the vehicle. If multiple animals pull the same vehicle, add their carrying capacities together. We are currently up in the Rimefall Vale in my West Marches, which is the legally distinct Icewind Dale. And they are dealing with that, the players, because dog sled travel is kind of one of the main... Dog sled and axe beak. Those are the main ways to maintain a normal speed in the icy north. And so the question came up, does adding extra dogs to the dog sled do anything? To which the answer was yes. But I don't know how. And here we go. 5 times its base carrying capacity, including the weight of the vehicle. So that's useful to know. Barding is an armor designed for the mount. I don't know any player who uses that. That is worthwhile to know, and they should use it. And I should, as a DM, feature that for my mounted enemies. Saddles. Okay. Good table here. Saddles are fine. Worthwhile, and I don't know if again, some of this this is for me. This is selfishly for me, and I am just putting this on display for you. So you're getting entertained by me coming across my shortcomings. I thought I heard something outside. That's cool. If I get attacked by an owlbear, oh well. It's been nice seeing y'all. Mounts and other animals here. We've got the table for their carrying capacities. And interesting. I do want to double check this. So I'm going to reach over and grab the monster manual. Oh, the fancy new monster manual I have. I have good monster manual. Say what you will about the 2025 monster manual, 24 rules, but this is a nice cover, man. Oh yeah. I love purple and blue, and it's so nice. It's so nice. Anyways, camel. A camel has a carrying capacity. Let's see. Base carrying capacity would be... let's take a look at the rules. So its strength is 2. We're going to come back to that. Whoa. Let's go into the rules in the rules glossary here. Notice, I don't know if you can see it because it's out of the way, but if there's something that I have a question with in the game, I go look it up. If you as a player have a question, and it's a question within the rules, you can look it up. I can't stress this enough. But I'm going to the rules glossary right now to double check carrying capacity. Your size and strength score determines the maximum weight in pounds that you can carry, as shown in the carrying capacity table. So, all right, let's put a little bookmark back where we are with the... So camels can carry 450 pounds. What I'm doing is, the rule is there, the table is there, but not the why or how. And as someone I also need to be able to kind of pinpoint the proof to go through it. Having reference is very good at the table, but outside the table, it's good to kind of spend some time on the why. And so we're going to do that. So they say a camel can carry 450 pounds. That makes sense. So the carrying capacity table says that based off of a creature size, you have a strength score multiplied by a certain amount of poundage. So the camel was... Actually, I have that. The camel was 15. Yeah, camel was 15. So let us do some math. Now, I am not ashamed to say that I don't do math in my head. I was a literature guy in school, so I did not develop a discipline for doing continual math in my head. Which is weird that I'm playing story-based math rocks, but it is what it is. So his strength is 15. And what is he? I did not look at the size. I think he's still medium. No, you'd have to be. Bear with me. Camel is a large beast. Okay. He is a beast. So large beast is strength times 30. Whoa. Oh, yeah. Texts. Nice. Those exist still. 15 strength time. Wait, is it? Strength score, not the modifier. So strength 15 times 30. 450. Yeah, the math checks out. And there I've just solidified that table is very useful to me. But now I know if I want to, if there's not a creature in this particular table, that doesn't apply. Like if someone's like, well, what about a spider? A giant spider that carries around. What about a drider? You can be like, okay, well, first of all, stop. Second of all, you can kind of base it either off the table in front of us or do the math based off the size, which is its own table in the rules glossary and later on in the book. So it's worthwhile to learn how to reference things as a book. And as a DM, I'm always learning, always coming across the idea that if there's something I need to know and it's worth knowing, I should be able to reference it. And always be great at referencing things, and I keep working at this. This is a journey that I'm making myself. We've got attack, harness, drawn vehicles. So does that just mean that the particular... Oh, attack, harness, and drawn vehicles. So it's just the weight of those. Okay. Anything in a table is worth referencing often. And if you are the type to memorize things, it is worth memorizing. If you're playing this game. Vehicles aren't very used in our games. And part of me is just hesitant to use them because that is an aspect I have to look up and reference. And as a DM, I should be better at this. So let's take a look at it. This might be the last one because I'm getting tired of this and I need some breakfast. It may be, if you're watching this from a different time zone than the Hellmouth, it's probably later in the day and you're probably on your merry work. But right now it is about 8:30 and I need some me time for breakfast. Large vehicles, speed. These all make sense. It's just that I don't use them. We don't come across them, and the players don't deal with them. But look at this nice table. Look at this. Just look at it. Look at it. It's a nice table, man. That's so good. It's worth knowing these and understanding these. Yeah. The problem with some of these extra things is you read them, and these are exciting. These extra rules and these things in the toolbox, they're kind of cool. They kind of get you excited to play the game. They're not the main crux of the game, which is the combat, the social interaction, and all that. They're not the kind of the main pieces, but these are all extra pieces. And they're in the book, which means they're a part of play, and they're important to the play in their own way. And to not engage with these is just a disservice to your campaign. And if I don't at least encourage my players to do things like this, to engage with these systems that are a little bit, maybe not my favorite, or maybe ones that I'm just haven't used a lot, we're all kind of doing ourselves a disservice at the table in the game. And as a player, I am going to subject my DMs in my campaign to this. Ignored by player and DM alike. Lifestyle expenses. And I'm going to read this. I said the other one will be my last. This will be my last for this stream for today. Let's just go through it and read it and see what we got. Lifestyle expenses summarize the cost of living in a fantasy world. They cover lodging, food, equipment, maintenance, and other necessities. At the start of each week or month, DM's choice. Ooh. As an aside, I mean, just make the rule. But anyways, DM's choice. Choose a lifestyle below. Wretched, squalid, poor, modest, comfortable, wealthy, or aristocratic, and pay the price to sustain that lifestyle. Lifestyles have no inherent consequences, but the DM might take them into account when determining risks or how others perceive your character. I don't charge my players a monthly or weekly rent in terms of money. And this kind of compounds a larger problem if I'm not doing this well. If the players aren't going to dungeons and getting loot on a regular basis, if they're doing the kind of their own thing in the world or not making money, they need to. And the game needs to encourage them to do that. And this does, this lifestyle expense. At which point, if I'm following the rules as written as a DM, I should be charging them based off the standard of living they want. Where that comes into kind of a conflict is in the West Marches style. There is a base of operations, a home base that is kind of promised to be safe. And that's important, but also it's not clear if that has a cost. And I've been lenient because I haven't used this system, and I think I should. I should get back into doing that. I don't know. I hope this was helpful in some sort of way. I liked doing this. I liked going through this kind of off the cuff and um, doing it in a more streaming format, something of interest. And I don't know. I hope it was valuable to you who watches. And if you come at this later, give me a note and let me know if you liked it, if it was valuable. Send a note to me on X or Twitter or whatever, and just say you enjoyed it. Or if there's even a like, hey, this is a commonly done rule that isn't this is ignored. Yeah, no, let me know. I want to know because I want to tackle it, and I also want to tackle other topics. It's cool. I'm excited to kind of build this channel up more and do different kinds of things in terms of media, and streaming is fun, and doing things off the cuff is fun. And yeah, I also down the road I want to work on a solo play, I think, and I am struggling to determine what I want to do in that regard. And by that I mean, do I want to just tackle a popular module? Do I want to do something custom? Do I want to engage with like something that is more of a one-shotty type thing? Or do I want something that's built over a longer period of time with multiple parts? And I lean towards that latter one, and I'm just trying to figure out which system. And if I would be better served tackling a system that I haven't had a chance to deal with, or if there's one that has some sort of resources on it that people have done. And so really it boils down to, do I want to do something in community with folk that it can be kind of like joined together with other people's efforts in that same game system? Or do I want to do something that I want to try for the sake of doing it? That's a tough one, and I'm undecided. Honestly, my opinion on that changes each day. I'm on each side of the fence each day. Because I could try to do a solo play of Cyberpunk Red. That would be fun. I don't have anyone locally who would ever play it, just because we don't have time, and the West Marches consumes most of that time, and everyone kind of, the local people haven't engaged with it nearly as much. But it's got some interesting rules and interesting things, and I bet it would be interesting to see how one could make a game, a solo play in that world, and build the random pieces. Because when I read through it a year or so ago, that is, it didn't seem like there was a lot of random elements that could just be jammed in there or added. Like there wasn't really necessarily a wandering monster system, and being forced to kind of come up with a system like that that could facilitate a solo play and be interesting seems interesting to me. But those are pondery thoughts, and I am just stalling. So I'm going to leave you here. I have more things to do in a day. Thank you for watching, those who did watch, and I want to keep this conversation going in terms of rules that are ignored or engaged with. And yeah, so to end things off, I'll say, have a good day, be well, and let's have some fun. All right, let's game. I'm going to work on an ending tag. None of them feels right. They all feel kind of silly, but we'll come up with something. So bye. And stream.